Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I'm Matt Graham, I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to thank you all for having me here at your speaker meeting. I talked at this a long time ago, right after it got started. There was only about 60 people there then. It's grown a lot. You guys got a lot noisier, chanting a lot. They didn't do that when I talked here before. Right before you read the traditions, which is the greatest thing in Alcoholics Anonymous, I think Wayne went in front of me and asked me to let you know how sick he really is. And I really like it when he's somewhere where I'm talking, because he makes me feel like, you know, I'm not that bad when he's here, you know. I mean, some of you heard how crazy my story was and shit, but I'm with a group of guys here that, you know, really make me look good. I mean, John's here from Fallon, Nevada, you know. I mean, who comes from Fallon, Nevada? You guys, I mean, you guys would drink too if the main thing to do is check the duck crossing out, you know. I mean, that's the main thing in that town, to go check to see if the duck crossing thing's still on the pavement, you know, crossing the highway there, you know, and Chuck, you know, I mean, you guys know him real good. You know what kind of a guy goes in for a hernia operation, comes out missing a leg, you know? And Todd asked me, would you tell another joke? And God dang it, there just had to be a couple Al-Anons here tonight too, and you know, and welcome Al-Anons, and I go to Al-Anon meetings, and I hope you understand there's not one alcoholic told me an Al-Anon joke. Every Al-Anon joke I know, Al-Anons have told me. But what does an Al-Anon and a linoleum floor have in common? If you lay them both right the first time, you can walk on them a good 20 years afterwards. I suppose I won't get a date from no Al-Anons in the room tonight. No, my friend Larcene told me that one. As a matter of fact, I think Larcene told me all the Al-Anon jokes I know. And then I got some friends here from the UK that talk funny too, you know. And then I met some new friends from Toledo, Ohio, and I get to meet people all over the country, getting to do what I do in Alcoholics Anonymous, besides the service I do and stuff, getting to do this kind of stuff. And my sobriety date is January 26, 1987, and for the newer people, that wasn't my first original sobriety date. And if this is the first time you're here, I hope to hell you do what it takes to stay here, because it gets worse and worse. And a lot of people think that, I hear people come back, went back out and I lost my job, or I lost my car. You know what that is? That's not what we're talking about. The will to live starts dying more and more the more you go in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. The desire to live gets less and less. The hope of something being different gets less and less. The material stuff you lose, I got that stuff back over and over all the years, when I finally got sober. It was all gone again, but I would go back out and in a couple of months I'd have another wife back again, I'd have another Lincoln again, I'd have another new Harley again, and it's like, I thought they said it just gets worse. But what I wasn't looking at, the desire to live was getting less and less. The hope that anything would ever be different in my life was getting less and less. So I just pray to God you do whatever it takes to stay here. I don't ever remember ever wanting to live, ever. I don't ever remember thinking, oh boy, this is fun to wake up and go play. I'll never remember, I never had a God in my life ever till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, not when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous 35 years ago. And they explained the doctor's opinion to me, and I thoroughly understood that, but at that point in my life, I wanted to die. So the willingness to do something different, absolute. Understanding that I had an allergy of the body and an obsession of the mind, and I had a spiritual illness, absolutely did no good, because by then I wanted to die more than anything in the world. And I went in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous for another 12 years. But when I finally, stayed sober, did what it took to stay sober, got involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and gave up all my ideas and all the ideas of trying to die, and got this God. Well, in the beginning, I didn't care if you call it God, higher power, whatever you wanted to call it, the group of drunks, whatever you wanted to call it. I never had that ever in my life. I never, nothing was ever fun, nothing was ever exciting. And when I first started drinking, to say that there wasn't fun in the beginning days of drinking, there was fun, because I could escape into that, and it was fun in the beginning. I could escape from that fear I lived in my whole life before I ever took a drink. And I was one of those that waited a long time before I ever took a drink. It was in the summer before the 4th grade. And I started out on the finer wines. It was hot Thunderbird wine, and I instantly became a daily drinker. I don't understand people that did it periodically or would wait till after they got off work. I do not understand that at all. It took me about 5 or 6 days before I started drinking in the mornings. It's like something that could eliminate all that fear. Why would you suffer till you got off work? Why would you suffer till school got out? You wake up and guzzle. Nobody had to teach me how to guzzle. It came naturally. You have to get the puking out of the way real quick, or get it over with early in life. Learn how to keep that crap down. And, and you learn to keep your hand over your mouth, so, you don't want to waste that stuff. Because, it's a little hard to get booze in the 4th grade, so you can't just throw it up and let it go all over the ground, you know, you got to hold your hand over your mouth and let it go up and down, you know, 10, 15 times. And you know, keep it down, you know, and, you know, you know, so I started getting in trouble for stealing because you can't just walk up the counter and buy it, you know, in the 4th grade. And I started going to juvenile hall systems, and, you know, I got both my parents were alcoholics. They were divorced when I was really young, and they were never around, so I ran the streets at a real young age, and I was the oldest of the kids. And once in a while, when my mom would bring a drunken boyfriend home, and I would try to have some interaction with a drunken bum that she would bring home, he'd beat my ass so bad I'd just come to in a pool of my own blood. And I got this idea as a young kid that you try to show affection to someone, you'd get your ass whipped. And you know, and an idea of sex that I got at a young age, you know, you walk in and see your mom with some drunken bum on the living room floor, you know, just naked and getting it on. And you know, so I had some bad ideas about a lot of things as a young child, and you know, getting molested when I was you know, they were having some, my mom and one of her boyfriends was having some work done when I was a little kid on one of the houses, and this carpenter guy, I thought it was really cool. He got us drunk and he molested us, and you know, for a lot of years you know, I lived with that guilt on that, and the worst guilt I lived, my brother was there too, and the thing I lived, that was one of the things I was going to take to my grave. I was hoping that guy would show up the next day. And I lived with that shame and that guilt that it felt good. And I didn't want nobody to know. And you know, because later on, you know, I was 10 years old, I started running with the Hells Angels, and I got my colors when I was 13 years old. And things like that, it was like, God, you know, being a tough guy, and those kinds of things just, I lived in fear that if anybody ever found out about that, on top of all the other false fears I had and stuff, that you know, I just lived in fear that all these ideas I had and these fears I had, that if people really knew that they would take advantage of me. And you know, I had to you know, through drinking and then I believe in the primary purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous more than anything in the world. And I, you know, I talk about the traditions a lot, but I also believe it's hard to find a pure alcoholic. And you'll never hear me dwell on you know, me talking about narcotics and stuff, even though our book talks about morphine and sedatives and stuff like that. But I took a lot of that other stuff. But I loved drinking more than that other stuff. You know, when the Hells Angels handed me handfuls of this stuff, I want to belong to that so desperately. I'm not going to tell them, hey, you know what, I'm afraid of that stuff. No, I don't want that. I'll just drink. Or someday I'm going to be in Florida and I'm going to be speaking at anything, so I can't take no narcotics, you know. And you don't ask how much or what will it do. You want to belong so desperately, you take all of it. You know, and then, you know, you turn 16 and you're in and out of institutions and you stick a needle in your arm, and it's like, you know what? You start believing that society's done this to you. It's not your fault. And you start going in and out of different institutions, and you know, you end up going to CYA, and you know, you start becoming this tough guy that everybody's afraid of, and everybody looks up to you, and they're really full of fear is what it is. But you want to go there. You know, it's really embarrassing going to CYA and juvenile hall when you're a Hell's Angel. You know, it's okay to go to jail because that's what you're supposed to do when you're a Hell's Angel, you know. And so I want to go to jail like Hell's Angels do, and my dream came true. I turned 18, I did armed robbery and shot a cop, and I'm sitting in jail about a week after I turned 18 thinking, man, you know, I thought like I started out with like a assault and battery or a minor robbery or something and work up to shooting cops right before I die at 21 or something, you know. And the cops screwed up. I got off those charges, and I thought, well, I'll get married. That's what I'll do. But this girl said she was pregnant, so I married her. You know, way back then, if you got a girl pregnant, you were supposed to marry them. And we had this Hell's Angel wedding in Reno. It was an awesome wedding. You know, we said, she said I do, and I said, till death do we part. And we got her loaded, and she passed out, and I came back 3 days later and picked her up, and she was pissed. But we had we had a really good party there in Reno, and you know, and I think she lied to me because, I mean, we were split up, but you know, that's how you get married, you know. I mean, you hang in there for a couple months, and you run them off, and you get another wife and move her in. You don't get divorced or anything, but you know. And then you spend the night, you know, you get married to 4 girls here in a rapid succession, and you don't get divorced from any one of them. And then you just have one come spend the weekend every once in a while, and then 18 months later from this first wife, this kid comes up, you know. It's like, son of a bitch. And by then you've shot another cop, and you know, you know, and that poor guy, all he did was he pulled me over, and he was going to run a warrant check, and I knew I had warrants for my arrest, you know, and I was meeting someone at a bar to do a dope deal, and you know, cops were always, after I got off that deal of shooting that first cop, they would just pull me over all the time and give me drunk tests, and of course I was always drunk, and they were picking on me all the time. They really were. That's not a joke or anything. They really were. They gave me like 3 drunk drivings in a day, but cops would get shot because if they would try to stop me from drinking, if they got in my way, which cops were always in my way, that's how they got shot. And so I ended up beating those charges too, and now they're really pissed at me. And you know, California is getting to be really sucky. You know, I've gone to jail all up and down the state. I got an indictment for me, and it's like, I'll move to Reno. Reno's really cool. You know, they got things happening. That you know, I'm born in Fresno. I live in Clovis. It's a little hick town back then. You know, everybody rode horses, and they had one pant leg in one boot and one outside the other boot, and they had horse shit all over them, and it just, you know, that's my problem. You know, I'm a guy that needs action going. I need action all the time, not be stuck in this little hick town, you know, where you ride horses and, you know, go out to the railroad tracks and beat the shit out of each other, and, you know, it's not my kind of place, you know. And so I get up to Reno, man, and you know, things are happening up there. You've been to those kind of places, Reno, Nevada. They got 24 hours action. You know, they got gambling, and they're open 24 hours a day, and they got free drinks. You guys know about the free drinks up there? You know, it's like you give them your paycheck, and they give you free drinks, that kind of action, you know? And I'm thinking, man, if I could have been raised up here, you know, shit would have been happening. Things would have been cool. My life would have been great. I wouldn't have turned out like I did. And I'm there 2 days. I'm in jail. And I'm thinking, God damn it. How'd they find out I got here so quick, you know? And, you know, next thing I know, I got an indictment for me in Nevada. I think, you know what, I need to slow this mess down. You know, I got 4 wives. I got, you know, a child, and they got these indictments for me. You know, I'm getting in trouble for shooting cops, and Vietnam War is going on. That's what I'll do. I'll do my civic duty. I'll join the Army, and I'll go over to Vietnam, and I'll shoot people, and I won't get in trouble for it. They'll slow me down. They'll get me off these hard drugs I'm doing. You know, I can drink all I want over there, and, you know, I'll become this millionaire a year after I'm in the service. I'll become like a 10-star general or something, you know. And they don't have them, but I'll become one because I'm so good. And, you know, and I'll steal stolen bazooka guns or whatever the hell they got in there and shit. And I'll be rich, and my life will be straightened out, and, you know, things will be good.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. So
I get to Fresno. I don't know why I thought I had to join the Army in Fresno, and I was really wasted on my Harley when I got there, and they got all these steps going up there to the recruiter's office, and I knew I was too wasted to walk up those steps. And you know how Alcoholics always has we got a good plan always, right? Plan A is always awesome. I get to thinking, you know, and I get to thinking, man, you know, I can't walk up those steps, but if I rev this Harley up just right and pop that clutch, you know, there's a landing up on top there, and I'll make it up there, and I'll walk in, and I'll join the Army, everything will be cool. And, you know, it was working out real good, but up there, I kind of went airborne and overshot that landing and crashed through the double doors, and got that Harley stopped inside the recruiter's office. And I got this long hair and this scraggly beard, and I got off that Harley, and just like in Bill's story, I told the guy, I'm the one you're looking for, you know. I had arrived, you know, and I took all their tests. You know, I got into the Army, and they sent everybody back east, but me they put on a bus to go to Fort Ord, California. It's a 3-hour bus ride, and I had enough booze for 4 days. And I'm really, I'm pretty drunk when I get to Fort Ord, and the drill sergeant's screaming at me, and nobody yells at me. I didn't think about that part. I knew, you know, I mean, you watch the movies on TV, you know, they yell at you in the Army and stuff. I don't know why I didn't think about that. But so I come off that bus, and I knock that drill sergeant out, and they haul me to the stockade. The first 10 minutes I'm in the United States Army, I'm locked up in the stockade, and I'm thinking this was a bad decision to join the United States Army. So I rest up a couple days, and I'm the type of alcoholic, you know, you know, it's always good to get locked up or something for a couple days, rest up, get some sleep, but then I leave. You know, I do that with marriages, I do it with relationships, I do it with everything. I split. I don't deal with anything, and they called it escape. I was just tired of staying there. I sold an armored truck for some transportation, and it took them 6 months to catch me, and they threw me in the federal penitentiary. And in time of warfare, they'll come take you out for anything, or they used to. I don't know if they still do, anything but murder. So they took me back, and in wartime, you couldn't get a discharge, but they gave me a discharge. They didn't want me anymore, and I leave there thinking, man, nobody will do anything. Nobody can help. And I just set out to make the world pay for what it had done to me. And I have like places like Tascadero State Hospital in California. It's they built that. It's a psychiatric prison. They send you there for evaluation for the criminally insane, violent criminally insane. And we could have cigarettes back then, but no lighters or anything. And so you spent your day in there, like going to the day room and trying to get a cigarette into your mouth, you know, and you'd work it all day sitting there at the day table trying to get this damn thing in your mouth. And somewhere through the day you get in there and you walk to the back wall, the concrete wall, and you'd aim for that little hole in the wall that was glowing red so you could light your cigarette, you know. And when you thought you were lined up, you just fell forward. The problem is if you missed the hole, you smashed the cigarette. If you made it in the hole, you got it lit, and I mean, you couldn't smoke. You just went back to the day table and looked down and watched it smoke. And when the cherry fell off, you were done. You just went back to bed, you know. You know, I'm the type of alcoholic that, you know, I get, it doesn't matter how stupid anything sounds, I get an idea in my head and I do it. I mean, I was in the Merced Zoo one night because somebody told me that's where the action's going. I took these girls home from a concert and I met them at this church concert. That's a good place to pick up girls. It really is. And so these people told me the action's going on in Merced at the zoo. That's where all the partying goes on and stuff. And I go over there, but not at 3 o'clock in the morning. There ain't shit going on there. And I see these wallabies, which is a miniature kangaroo. And I think, man, it'd be nice to have one of those. So I stole one of them. And Merced's an hour north of Fresno, and I get halfway back home. I get to thinking, you know, I mean, we're great thinkers when we've been drinking, you know what I'm saying? I get to thinking, one isn't worth the shit without the mate. So I turn back around, go to Merced, and I steal the other one. And I'm almost to Fresno, and I get to thinking, what the hell am I going to do with these 2 kangaroos? I haven't talked to my mom in a couple of years. You know, I don't like my mom. My mom's alcoholic. I don't think I ever really liked my mom until she died. I took care of her the last 10 years of her life. But she lives way out in the country. And so I get to thinking, you know, she'll have some cages out there and shit. So I get out there, you know, it's about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I put these 2 kangaroos in a cage and put them on her front porch. She lived way back down this dirt road and shit. And I went in, I woke up and I go, Mom. And she goes, what? And I go, I got your 2 kangaroos on the front porch. And she goes, yeah, and I bet the elephants and tigers are in the backyard too. And I go, you smart ass. And it pissed me off and I left. And the next morning I get up and I get the paper and the headlines on the front page says, don't look now, but I just seen a kangaroo. This highway patrol was driving out there by close to where she lives and he seen a kangaroo hopping across the street, you know, a wallaby, and it went on to say that someone had stole 2 wallabies from the Merced Zoo that night and there was a $2,500 reward for each one. Man, so I make you guys know what I did. I'd make a beeline out to my mom's house and there ain't no kangaroos there. I go, Mom, where'd the kangaroos go? And she goes, I let them loose. I was so pissed, she screwed me out of $2,500, man. I didn't talk to her for 5 years after that. You know? I mean, people tell me, God, we got to listen to tons and tons of your tapes to get all the stories. I did so many stupid things, man. And, it would take forever to tell you. I mean, I thought of shit and I just did it like that. I mean, who steals kangaroos, I don't think I've ever told that story with Wayne there, because he'll probably use that one. But I mean, God, I stayed too long on that kangaroo story. I've been going to Alcoholics Anonymous 10 years, in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, and doing it my way, and half-ass working the steps, and getting sponsors and not call them, and doing 4 steps that weren't honest. And I didn't know till I got sober this time that deep down inside, there was somehow I knew that was the only hope I had. Because I always wondered, why do I keep going back to Alcoholics Anonymous? I don't want to live. I'd get 10 months sometimes, and 11 months, and sometimes I'd only get 30 days. But I kept going back to Alcoholics Anonymous, and after 10 years of that, and I'm married for the 7th time, and had the ranch and the cows and the horses and pigs and all that, and another kid, and I kicked her out, and she wouldn't come back, and I grabbed a shotgun and stopped at 7-Eleven, bought 2 bottles of champagne to celebrate blowing her head off, and I went over her apartment, and she wasn't there, and the SWAT team showed up, and I couldn't shoot another cop, and I held that shotgun in my hand, and I pulled the trigger. I thought my kids would be better off without me in this world. And when I came to out of that coma, all the way blind, which I'm most way blind still, but I got some eyesight back. The optic nerve grew back to my eye. It's just blurry as hell. And if I pop this plate out that snaps in my head right now, I still can't talk, so I couldn't talk. Doctors told me every day, boy, you're going to die, and I was hooked to life support systems. I was strapped to bed, every part of my body with leather restraints. And that's where I got introduced to AA again. They come in every day and ask me, boy, can we read you the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Like I had a choice in that matter. And they took turns every day, week after week, month after month after month after month, reading me that friggin' book. And you see, desperately I wanted to tell them, because I always, if I'm an alcoholic, that's no doubt about that. But if I got one thing that I'm different than you, then I don't have to do what you do. And desperately I wanted to tell them, I'm blind and I'm dying. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm a little bit different than you. You don't understand. I desperately wanted to tell them that, but I couldn't. And what they did was they bought up this tape deck with all these tapes, and when they would leave at nighttime, they'd say, you want to listen to speaker tape? And I couldn't say no or wiggle my... and they'd put in a tape, and the nurses, how they come in all night long every hour and check your vital signs every hour? They thought I enjoyed them so bad, when the tape would end, they'd put another one in. all friggin' night long. So, all those months that after that coma, for 11 months and something, I was in the hospital. They just played tape after tape after tape after tape. And I get out there and damn. And they want to know if I want to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And I made the national news, what I done and stuff. And I thought, everybody I shot and robbed and everything I'd done all those years, that now they're going to come get me and take advantage of me. And they know I'm blind. It was on national TV. And so, hell yeah, I'll hide out in AA. Now I'm going to 3 to 5 meetings every day. But you see, I still got a secret. Everybody's going... I got another sponsor. I'm going to that many meetings. I'm doing service work now. It looks like I'm doing the deal, but now I got a secret, though. They go, how's it going, Matt? And I go, man, being sober in Alcoholics Anonymous and being this involved is the best thing that's ever happened to me. But inside, I got the secret that, someday, somehow, I'm going to find a way to die. But I won't tell nobody. And I'm having all these major surgeries. I'm saving up all my my pills from my surgeries, and I got 455 synthetic morphine tablets, and 2 years later, after meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I took all those pills and I guzzled them down with 2.5 gallons of vodka. I knew that would work. And I came to out of that coma pissed. And it's like, man, what do I got to do to die? And it's like, it came to me that you know what, there's some kind of God in this universe that and I really honestly believe that day that if he's not done with you, you're not going to die. I don't care what you do, you're just going to keep missing body parts, you're going to keep drinking. Because by this time, I got to where I was pulling guns on cops and not pulling the trigger, and they were shooting me, and I'd come to in surgeries, and I'd still be alive. And my whole body's been re-put back together, and bone transplants and muscle transplants. I'm wired and pinned and screwed back together, and I only got one original part of my body left, and I get to thinking, man, if I keep drinking, I'll lose that sucker too. And see how sick you guys, I've never ever said what part that is, and you guys think you know what it is. But my whole body's just a mass of scar tissue and stuff from all the fun I've had over the years and all the surgeries and stuff, and it's like, okay, God, I give up. I'll do whatever you and Alcoholics Anonymous want of me. And I went to me and I told the old timers that day, I'd do whatever you ask of me, man. I give up. And I go, what do you guys want me to do? And they called me that boy shit again. And I hate that boy shit. I'm a convict. I'm a Hell's Angel. I ain't no damn boy, My sponsor used to do that to me. I tell him, keep talking so I can find you, and I'll whip your ass, He has this funny little laugh, and he'd laugh, and then he'd move, and God, that would piss me off so bad. But, I didn't know what he was doing. He was getting me pissed off at him about that, and I'd forget about all the other shit I was pissed off about. It's like I'd get so mad trying to find him in the parking lot. I'd forget about everything else. But they go, boy, we want you to pick up the cigarette butts. I go, oh, that shit ain't happening. We ain't having a circus act here. The blind boy going out to pick up the cigarette butts. And they said, we thought you made a deal with God that you would do anything. I go, okay. And so that worked over 23 years ago, so I still pick up the cigarette butts. And I was 5 days sober, and they told me, boy, we need you to go to the jail. The means aren't being covered down there. I said, I ain't doing it. I got warrants for my arrest. And they go, we don't care. You said you'd do anything. And so I went to thank God they didn't need clearances back there. You didn't have to show ID or nothing. You just walked up the window and said AA, and they let you in. I didn't carry no message hardly that night because I was scared to death I wasn't getting out. But last February 1st has been 23 years. I still take the meetings into the jail. The things that I did to be okay in the beginning, I'm not one of those that get a lot of years and think I don't have to do that anymore. I still do it because it worked back then. It still works today, and God hasn't sent me a fax said you don't need to do it anymore. I heard Johnny Harris say that when I was new. If I knew what parts I did that I didn't have to do anymore, I'd quit doing it, but God hasn't let me know what parts those are yet. And I remembered that, so I still do that stuff today. I sponsor a lot of people. I've been involved. My whole sobriety since I was 5 days sober, I've never ever gone without a service commitment in my sobriety. Sometimes I've had too many service commitments. I have people I sponsor say, oh God, my life's so full I can't do anything. And I tell them, look at here. I was totally blind in the beginning. I was a single parent. I worked about 50 hours a week. I had 7 service commitments a week. So Johnny Harris told me I had to go to 7 regular meetings a week, and and somehow I made it all work. I wanted to stay sober. And sober is not about not drinking. If you're fairly new here and think it's about not drinking, that's not what this is about. It's about learning how to live comfortable in any situation comes around in your life, good or bad. Patty picked us up Friday, and we went to New Me, and we had lunch with Sandy. And I talked to him. He's had a lot of stuff go on in his life. And Friday, I asked him, Sandy, not about your physical stuff. How are you doing emotionally? And he told me, he goes, because of the love of Alcoholics Anonymous that everybody's shown me this year, he goes, emotionally, he goes, I'm as great as I've ever been. And you know what? And that's what's happened to me in my life in Alcoholics Anonymous. My parents have died in sobriety. I had the worst divorce of my life in sobriety. But great things have happened too. The scumbag I am, I ended up getting 100% custody of my little boy in sobriety, and that ain't supposed to happen to me. And through that nasty ass divorce I got in sobriety, which I could sit up here and tell you all the things where she screwed me in that divorce, but what I can tell you about that divorce is a book says, where did I put myself in a position to be harmed? And I did that. So I'm the one to blame in that divorce, because I did set myself up in a position to be harmed. And then I met the love of my life that I never knew love could be that awesome after that. And Wayne had got to meet her. It was this little 5 foot tall, long blonde hair, 98-pound little girl. I was never going to have nothing to do with another woman in this world ever again, because that divorce was so awful. And I met this little girl, and I fell absolutely in love. We both fell in love with each other, and I was gone speaking. And 2 years ago, last June 15th, she went for a doctor's appointment, and he put her in the hospital, and 5 days later, she died of melanoma cancer. And I was pissed at God at 22 years sober. I was pissed at God one more time.
The time is 8:59 p.m.
And I had to do a lot of writing. And I had to get back to what the book says. Nothing else will save the day more than intense working with newcomers. And that's what I've done. And it's time to quit. But emotionally, my life, because I do what the book says, intense working with newcomers, my life has never been better. Thanks for having me here, and God bless you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.